So thanks for coming. We hear a lot of your students are in the audience, so thanks for making it all the way from Cambridge to this conference. So why don't I start by asking you, the topic we are covering is equity and fairness in clinical models. So there's been a lot of talk about bias that exists in these models for a long time. So why don't you tell us, why is this such a hard problem to address?
So hopefully you guys remember your matrix math class from your student days. Why is this hard? It's hard because if you have a simple model, a logistic regression model, how is it making its decision? It's making it based on weights. It takes a little bit of your age, a little bit of your sex, a little bit of your height, your weight to determine how likely you are to get diabetes. We don't do that anymore, right? We have this huge n-dimensional latent space that's taking thousands and thousands of tiny weights times many, many, many nonlinear associations of all those features, right? How are you going to remove the bias when it's been pre-coded in all of these really, really small ways, right? And so even with older models, we've had these issues. But we could maybe address them in a more simplistic, straightforward way. And I think those times are gone. And so we're trying to develop new methods to comprehend where we can remove bias and how.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what are we doing today in our current models to remove some of this bias?
Okay, let's say that you have a model, and this model is going to predict whether somebody should be hired as a doctor, okay? And let's assume that you don't want it to be biased with respects to sex or race, okay? These are reasonable assumptions, I promise. Well, if you remove, and let's say it's really putting a lot of weight on representing an individual candidate by their sex and their race, okay? And you want to remove the correlation with race and being hired as a doctor. When you cut that out of the model's latent space, when you say, estimate where male and female are, for example, and project that distance out, you're basically squishing one part. And now all of the other parts of the model's mind, of this latent space, they distort around that cut that you made. And it has a hole now. And so how is it supposed to represent you as a candidate? You just told it can't use any of the weight that it was putting on being male or female, and so it puts all of that weight into race. And so this is called the whack-a-mole problem. You remove, it's a cute paper, I promise. They have a Diglett, like the Pokemon, in the paper for whack-a-mole. It's very cute. Computer scientists get bored, and so we put Pokemon in our papers. So this whack-a-mole problem means that some of the simplistic operations that we've been doing, they really don't work. We don't have as good a grasp on how to remove things. And so some of what we're trying now in recent work are trying to do gradient-based estimates of how to rotate representation rather than cutting it out.
Great. So I know today in this audience we have a lot of folks from industry, but you obviously are coming from academia, and there's a lot of collaboration and interdevelopment that happens between what happens in academia, what happens in research labs, and what happens in industry. So maybe can you talk a little bit about what is the role of these different players in the space between academia and industry and how they can work together?
Yes. First, I will say, I was once at a medical conference, and the person, all the people before me, they had a slide in their talk where they had, here are my conflicts of interest. And then they listed pharma companies, big like tech companies, I did not have a COI slide. And I felt really left out. So I'm in the market for a COI. Not actually, please don't approach me. I have no COIs. So I feel like I can say, as an academic, there's so much porosity today in AI between what we do in industrial research labs and what we do in academia. There's so much collaboration. My students go to these labs. I collaborate with researchers at these labs. That's great. That means that we're all speaking the same language, we're all using the same code bases, and we're all building on each other's papers. That also has a really specific downside, which is we can get into a really narrow, homogeneous way of thinking. If you think about when I was teaching machine learning as a graduate student at MIT, this was right when neural networks first beat the ImageNet benchmarks. okay? The neural network-based models were beating them. The first time ever at ICML that year. I remember several MIT machine learning professors who I was teeing the class for said, this is a blip. Neural networks don't really work. They'll never take off. Because we were all thinking a specific way, right? You can get into this homogeneous frame of mind. And I think I see that a little bit now. And so there's pros and cons with having that amount of porosity, I think.
Right. So again, switching gears a little bit. So a lot of the talk we're doing here about equity and fairness also leads us to talk a little bit about AGI. And there are a lot of tech luminaries and leaders like Geoffrey Hinton and Tristan Harris and recently Jack Clark who have been warning us about the coming of AGI and what are the challenges ahead of us. But there are also some real world examples of these deployments and the challenges that people are facing by just using them. So maybe if you can talk about what are some of the challenges we face today while we table the discussion around AGI. Let's talk about what's happening today with the models that are deployed.
I do think there's been a really nice pivot from saying, let's just think about an eventual issue to let's think about what's happening right now with the models that are being deployed in practice. So there was this really great interview that Jeff Hinton did with Jon Stewart where he was saying, you know, I am really uncomfortable with a lot of the harms that I see happening, not because we let some AI get super intelligent, but we had an AI system that a human told to do the wrong thing, either intentionally or unintentionally, and it did it. And so I think addressing those harms now and specifically building safer models that can be more aware of those risks now is one of the biggest challenges for current AI researchers.
So building on that, given the award that you're going to be receiving today is about, AI for a better world, how do you think we can be working with AI to make sure AI is being used to help create a better world? And what is it that you find to be some of the challenges ahead of us and some of the opportunities?
Is this recorded? Okay. I think that the most important thing to be aware of is a lot of other technology that has been developed up until this point. So think about airplanes or cars or whatever it is. Those things are often done to facilitate human interaction and human needs, okay? So a lot of the models that I build in AI, they're trying to do better diagnosis, better prognosis, better prediction of an important medical outcome, okay? That's what a lot of my colleagues are doing. I think this is really great. That's not what AI is being used for in the clinic right now. Does anybody know what it's being used for right now? Billing. It's being used right now to automate and extract more money in billing. It's also being used to automate patient and provider communication. Is that what it should do? Remove all the human interaction from medical care when we already don't like how little interaction there is? I think we have to look at where AI is being deployed versus where researchers are trying to make it better. So for example, we see a lot of AI being deployed as chatbots. Again, taking away human interaction. I don't think we want, famous words from some of these luminaries. I don't think we want AI to colonize human interaction. And that's where it's being deployed because that's where there's money. I think as researchers, both in industry and academia, we recognize that there are huge opportunities for AI to extend the reach of what we can already do, to be a transformative tool. But that's probably not going to come out of squeezing more money out of an insurer in some way. And so we really need to take a look at where humans need extended reaches and need more capacity and focus our innovation there.
Great. So last question for you. We have a lot of founders in the audience. So I was wondering if you could share some advice that you would give them as they think about building tools and services in the AI space, similar to maybe the advice that you give your students who are also doing a lot of research in the space. What is it that you would want them to focus or think about?
Okay. My advice is don't do what people are currently really hyper fixated on with AI, which is, again, taking human interaction, which is already messy and stressful, but one of the reasons potentially, depending on your worldview, that we're here, and just colonizing it, removing it, right? That's probably not what we want. So don't make a startup that's focused on that, right? Find a real problem that people want solved, not just a human process we already do kind of badly, like billing, and I just want to make it more efficient to get more money out of it. Find a real problem that you think AI can extend the reach of humans with in a positive way, right? Like, ideally, the goal is to empower and ennoble humanity with AI, right? Not to have chatbots that convince people to do bad things. And so find something that you think is actually an issue right now. We're just bad at some things as humans, right? Like, why do we have, mass spectrometry? Because our eyes don't do that, right? Like, why do we have airplanes? Because we can't fly, right? Give humans a new capacity. Don't just colonize something that's already there.
Great. Well, nice words to end on. Thank you so much for coming.